Good morning. Welcome to our daily devotion. It is Friday, February 19th. I thank those of you that continue to watch these, those of you that are committed to them. Viewership has been down. I'm not sure why. That's a God thing. I leave it to Him. I just try to do the best I can and see where it goes from there. So I thank those of you that share them also. Marcy, good morning. Morning, Roz. We're in Matthew chapter 9. I'm going to be reading verses 35 through 38. It said, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." Wow. Interesting scriptures here this morning. Jesus looking at the crowd, to him was literally like looking like sheep that were running around the pasture with no shepherd and just lost, going every direction. That's how Jesus saw the people. Good morning, John. Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Sharon. Good morning, Grace. He was moved. He had great compassion because they were helpless. Compassion means deep caring. Deep caring. Not just saying you care, but doing something, caring enough to do something about it. So I would like to talk about something that many of you have compassion for. I have compassion for. When you think of orphan children in India, trying to survive without any parents, as young as 4 or 5 years old. I remember hearing the stories from from Prakash and from Suresh about the millions, literally millions of children that age on the streets alone, orphaned. I remember right after the tsunamis hit, they were literally all over they're literally fighting dogs for scraps just to survive. And most don't make it. It'd be like, I have a grandson that's 5 years old, little James. It'd be like him being orphaned out on the street, surviving on his own. I just literally couldn't even imagine that. I take him to the park, and if I lose sight of him, I get nervous. Like, oh my gosh, what happened to him? Imagine living 24/7, entirely on his own. Tell me that you wouldn't have compassion if that was your child or your grandchild. You would have great compassion. Well, that's the compassion that Jesus had, and that's the compassion that Jesus wants us to have for the lost, for people that lost. Now, lost comes in many different ways. He's talking, of course, here about spiritually lost, but there's also the children that are lost. This is why those of you that support at least one child in India, I want you to know that you're precious to the Lord. You are precious to the Lord because He had compassion on them, and He wants us to have that same compassion. I have 3 brothers, and one of them, the girlfriends of one of them, they've been supporting 3 children in India now for over 6 years. For over 6 years, they've been supporting a child in India. Listen what God says about that here in Proverbs 19:17. Those who are kind to the poor lend to the Lord, and He will reward them for what they have done. When you help the poor, it's just like helping Jesus. It's like giving to Jesus. So when my brothers and Joanne gave to Collision Church, they weren't given to Collision Church. They weren't given to me. They weren't even given to the children. They were literally giving it to Jesus. They're literally giving it to Jesus. And then Jesus says, "And I will reward you." They're storing up treasures in heaven instead of treasures here on earth. Treasures in heaven where it really counts, because those treasures last for an eternity. So I don't. I guess like a lot of us, we have to see things to feel it, to have compassion. Just hearing about it sometimes doesn't register. But I know this: we're a world. We're no longer just America. We're, you know, the market, the financial market out there. It isn't just our market. Isn't just dependent on the United States. It's a world economy now. Every country is dependent on one another. So it's no longer just each country individually. And it's the same thing with Christianity. It's no longer just America. Christianity goes out to the world. What did Jesus say? Go to the ends of the earth and share the gospel, preach the good news. It's amazing that these videos go out to the ends of the earth to many other countries. So we need to have compassion, not just for what we see here in America, but what we hear about, and maybe some have been fortunate enough to see in other countries. I know many people support orphans and children in Africa. We just happen to do it in Asia, in India, because of the contacts that we have there. So there's lost people all over, lost children. I happen to have compassion for children, lost children all over. Imagine 4, 5, 6-year-old children, millions of them literally walking the streets alone trying to survive. Well, if you don't have compassion for that, I don't know what you have compassion for. So in our scripture today, Jesus is talking about not having enough workers to teach the crowds that were lost. He was looking at them lost spiritually. Now, this is why I appreciate what Prakash and what Sandeep's mom is doing, with his parents, but his father passed away, what his mom is doing. Listen to this now. If you supported an orphan, like my brothers now that did it for 6 years, that orphan might have been 5 years old when they started. Now that orphan is 11 years old 6 years later. And when those orphans get old enough, they teach them, they train them, they feed them, they house them, they clothe them, and then when they get old enough, they're seminary trained, and then many of them, in fact most of them, then end up being sent. Just recently now, Prakash or Sandeep's, was it Prakash? Yeah, Prakash's one of the gentlemen at the church married a woman in the church, and the church sent them out into a remote village now to share the good news with those that are lost in that remote village that have never even heard of Jesus. And that's what they do. They raise these people up in these orphanages, teach them, train them, educate them, so that they then in turn can go out into remote villages. I just think that's awesome, the way they do that. So unfortunately, everything that happens takes money. They have to feed them. They have to house them. Right now, Prakash is trying to trying to raise enough money to build this building so that he can house more orphans. I mean, there's no limit to how many orphans they can bring in. There's literally no limit to it. It's just the only limitations are financial limitations. So they depend on almost exclusively on us. Good morning, Anna. Good morning, Will. Good morning, Paul. It's why we take special offerings every Sunday with Vision to support these ministries that are doing incredible ministry. I mean, it's one thing to feed them. But they're going to be hungry the next day then too. They're teaching them trades. They teach the women to sew. They're 24/7. They're teaching them, and like I said, many of them go into ministry and spread the gospel. So if this is something that moved you at all, you can adopt a child. It's only $35 a month. And this is what I want to share if you did decide to do it. Years ago, when I was young, I was moved when I'd see these pictures of hungry children on TV, and I gave to an organization called World Vision, and I adopted several children. Was given money each month until I found out that, gosh, minimal. If you give $100, maybe $30-40 actually gets there. The rest of it is overhead for staffing, for building, for advertising, etc. The thing with us is if you give $35 to adopt a child, I want you to know this, that whole $35 goes exactly to where it's supposed to go. Every penny of it. There's a one. In fact, we give a little bit more because when you give online, there's a cost to it. If you give $100, it ends up being about $96. About $4 is what they charge for the credit. Collision makes up for that loss so that if you give $35 online, we make sure that they get that whole $35. So if you would like to support a child, or maybe you're financially well off and you can support more, I know, like I told you, my brothers each support 3, which is $105 a month. If you would like to support, you can go to the Collision online, Collision Facebook page, and there's for Ty, there's for Dandy, there's for Dawn with her ministry, Lily's Legacy, but there's also one there for Adopt a Child. And so you can give online, and I will see that when it comes through, and I will keep record of all that. But if you're moved, if you have compassion, deep compassion for children that are orphaned, living on the streets, you can give. And remember what I said, you're not giving to me, you're not giving to Collision, you're not even giving to that child. You're literally giving it to Jesus. He said, when you give to the least, you are given to Him. And He says, and I will reward you. I will reward you. Wow. So if you're moved by this, 2 things: go on the Facebook page and give online, or share this video. There may be someone watching this video, a family member of yours, a friend of yours, that may be moved by this, and they may give. What did Jesus say? He had compassion. He said, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are so few. Ask the Lord of the harvest there to send out workers into the harvest field. The orphans are plentiful, but the helpers are so few. Pray that God will send out more people to care about these lost children. Amen. Hey, thanks for joining. Share this if it meant something to you. And for the rest of you, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock for our Saturday devotion. Have a great day. God bless you all.